You clicked on a story about the old Viking man who walked into the snow and never returned. But he did not vanish the way legends claim. This follows one man whose body weakened while his will stayed sharp. A man whose tribe watched him slow with each season. A man who taught the young, fed the sick, solved disputes, and carried memories no one else held. When winter pressed hard on their land, he stepped out of his longhouse before dawn. He carried no spear, no pack, no farewell. The tribe woke to his footprints leading into rising snow. They followed them as far as they dared. No one found him. Yet his last walk shaped his people more than his long life ever did. This is the story of the old Viking man who walked into the snow and never returned. You see him in the half-dark of early morning. His breath forms slow clouds. His joints bend with effort. His eyes stay fixed on the white horizon. Behind him, his hall sleeps. Inside it lie people he raised, taught, and guarded. He lifts his staff, steps forward, and the snow takes his weight. He does not look back. His footprints stretch toward the ridge. The storm builds. No one hears the door close behind him. By the time the tribe wakes, he is gone. The snow keeps his path. His choice reshapes the lives he leaves behind. This is how some elders ended their winters. Before we begin his final walk, settle your breath, slow your shoulders, pull a blanket close or warm your hands near soft light. Tell me where you watch from tonight. Let the room grow quiet around you. Let your mind ease into the hall he left behind. If these calm Viking stories bring you peace, you support the journey with a gentle like or a soft tap on subscribe. Leave a quiet comment if you want more tales about forgotten people in old halls. Now take one deep breath. Let the snow settle in your thoughts. Let the cold ridge take shape in front of you. His last dawn waits for you. Snow pressed hard against the longhouse walls through the last hours of night. The hall breathed with slow heat from the central fire. Embers glowed red. The tribe slept in tight lines. Children curled near their mothers. Young men rested with hands on weapons. Old skins lay over each body. Winter owned the land, and every breath told the truth of its weight. At the far end of the hall lay the oldest man in the tribe. His name was Torvald. His hair held the dull white of many winters. His hands carried thick lines from years with axe and rope. For decades he stood on every field. He led hunts. He spoke for the tribe during feuds. He trained boys who later trained sons of their own. Now he lay thin under one fur. His chest moved slow. Each breath scraped through a body tired from long work and long memory. The tribe thought he slept, but Torvald's eyes stayed open in the dark. He stared at the roof beams that held smoke. He listened to the soft breaths of the people he watched grow. He heard the low wind outside. He felt the cold creeping past the edges of the longhouse. His limbs no longer held the strength they once did. His joints stiffened. His back screamed each morning. His body told him a truth he accepted with calm steps. He knew the time had come. In Viking lands, elders sometimes chose their last walk, not for glory, not for honor, for peace. Age brought hunger to the tribe. Age brought weakness to warriors. Age soaked up work from younger hands. Torvald never let others serve him. He refused to drain strength from the people he spent a lifetime protecting. When an elder felt the weight of life grow too heavy, some walked into the snow. No feast, no ritual. They left with the dawn, letting nature close the last page. Torvald shifted now. Pain came with the movement, yet he made no sound. His breath hung white above him. His hands pressed the fur aside. He rose slow, his legs trembled, but he pushed through. He reached for the staff he carved in autumn. Each cut in the wood held stories. Each line marked a season, a fight, a harvest, a death. He held it for balance. He held it for truth. He stepped over sleeping kin. He passed men he trained as boys. He passed women whose children he once carried on his shoulders. He passed his oldest friend, lying near the hearth with a hand over a knife. None woke. The old knew how to move with silence. Torvald reached the door. The frame looked warped from storms. Frost lay across the edges like thin glass. He gripped the handle with stiff fingers. The cold bit deep. He opened the door slow. Wind rushed in at once, sharp and loud. Snow swirled across the threshold. He stepped out. Outside, the world stood white and blue. The sky barely held color. Dawn sat behind a thick curtain of clouds. Pine trees rose dark against the snow. The air tasted of iron and ice. Torvald felt winter press into his bones, yet his face stayed calm. He moved away from the hall. His footprints sank deep. Snow rose to his knees. He pushed forward with steady steps. Snowflakes landed on his hair and melted slow. His breath came in short clouds. He walked toward the ridge that watched over the valley. It looked far, but he knew the path by memory. Each step carried the weight of years. He thought of the raid he led in his youth. He thought of the trade run that saved the tribe from hunger. He thought of his brother who died on the fjord. He thought of the woman he loved. He thought of her laugh, sharp and warm. He outlived her by 2 decades. The pain of her loss stayed with him. Yet tonight he felt closer to her than he had in many winters. Behind him, the longhouse remained dark. Smoke rose through the roof hole. No one stirred. Torvald walked on. Inside the hall, a young girl woke first. Her name was Runa. She slept light each night. Her ears caught every sound of winter. She listened now and sensed something missing. A stillness, fresh and strange. She sat up. Her hair fell over her face. She brushed it aside. She scanned the hall. The old man's place lay empty. Her chest tightened. She crawled across the floor toward the spot where he slept. The fur lay flat, cold. She pressed her hand into it. No warmth. She looked toward the door. A draft shook the edge of her blanket. She stood. Runa pushed through sleeping bodies. She opened the door and winced at the cold. The morning looked white and harsh. She stepped outside. Her feet froze at once. She saw the prints in the snow, deep, slow, leading away from the hall. Her eyes widened. She knew the stories. She knew what elders sometimes chose. Her stomach knotted with fear. Torvald was old, but he spoke with strong words. He walked with slow steps, but his mind stayed sharp. She saw him as a mountain. She saw him as a steady figure in the tribe. She never pictured him leaving without a word. She whispered his name, though the wind swallowed it. She thought of waking the tribe. She thought of running after him. But snow reached high. Cold cut deep. She stood frozen between fear and duty. Then she turned back inside. She moved fast through the hall and shook her brother's shoulder. "Torvald is gone," she whispered. Her brother's eyes opened at once. He pushed himself up. Others stirred at her voice. Something in her tone reached them through sleep. A woman sat up. A boy rolled over and blinked. A man near the hearth rose with stiff steps. Runa repeated the words. Now the hall filled with sound. People stood. People rushed to the door. People pushed outside and stared at the deep prints leading away. The tribe gathered by the entrance. Breath clouds hung in the air. Fear and sadness twisted their faces. No one spoke at first. The oldest woman in the hall pressed a hand to her chest. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. A young warrior named Leif stepped forward. He held a spear. His jaw tightened. "We follow him," he said. The chieftain shook his head. His voice came quiet but strong. "He chose this." Leif looked down at the snow. Anger burned in him. Torvald trained him for years. Now he stood powerless. Runa clung to her brother's arm. Her eyes stayed on the prince. The chieftain stepped to the front. He studied the path. He touched the marks. Snow already drifted into them. "We do not chase him," he said. "This walk belongs to him." Some nodded, some cried, some looked away. Runa stepped forward. "He saved my life last spring," she said. Her voice shook. "He held me when I fell in the river. I want to help him now." The chieftain placed a hand on her shoulder. "He helped you by choice. Now he helps the tribe by leaving." She lowered her face. The tribe stood together in the cold. No one moved. No one turned back inside. They watched the prince fade as the snow thickened. They watched as the path grew softer. They watched until the trail turned white. Runa felt her heart sink. She felt a weight she did not understand. Torvald guided her through childhood. He told her stories. He taught her knots. He brought her berries each summer. She never believed she would lose him like this. Leif broke the silence. "We honor him today," he said. "We keep the fire strong. We speak his name." The chieftain nodded. "And we hold his lessons." One by one, they returned to the hall. Runa stayed behind. She stared at the ridge until wind pushed her hair back. Snow stung her cheeks. She whispered his name again. Then she walked inside. Torvald reached the lower slope of the ridge. The cold bit deeper now. His legs strained. His chest burned with each breath. But he kept going. The snow thickened around him. The wind screamed along the rocks. He leaned on his staff. He pressed his boot into deep drifts. He stopped once and looked back. He saw nothing of the hall. The storm hid it. The tribe stood far behind him. He felt no fear, only peace. He took another step, then another. At the ridge's crest, he stopped. The valley spread wide below him. Pines swayed. Snow drifted across open land. The fjord lay far to the east, covered in white sheets. He smiled. This sight marked every year of his life. His legs weakened. He sank to one knee. He set his staff in the snow. He lowered himself beside it. He closed his eyes. The storm thickened around him. His breaths slowed. The ridge held him. The valley watched. Morning pressed itself into the longhouse, slow and heavy. The fire woke with soft cracks as wood shifted. The tribe moved with quiet steps. No one spoke above a whisper. No one laughed. The space felt thinner without Torvald's breath in it. Runa sat near the hearth with her knees pulled tight to her chest. Her brother Eirik placed a bowl of warm broth in front of her. She did not reach for it. Her eyes fixed on the fire. The flames bent and rose in small waves, like the old man's hand when he told her a story. Eirik knelt beside her. "You saw his place first," he said. "You told us before anyone else. He would have liked that." Runa shook her head. "I should have stopped him." "You could not." His voice came low. "He chose his way." She kept her gaze on the fire. Eirik stayed with her in silence. Around them, others moved with stiff motions. They carried out tasks they learned long ago. One man repaired a broken spear shaft. A woman prepared meat from the morning stores. 2 boys sorted dried fish. Work kept grief from spreading too fast. Only Leif broke the stillness. He strode across the hall with sharp steps. His jaw stayed locked, his hands clenched and unclenched. The chieftain watched him from across the room, but said nothing. He knew anger in a young man needed space before it needed words. Leif stopped near the wall where Torvald once stored tools for the tribe. He reached out and touched a small carving. It was a wooden knot symbol Torvald made long before Leif was born. The old man shaped it for strength during hard seasons. Leif's hand trembled as he traced it. Eirik stood. He walked toward Leif with slow steps. "He trained you most," Eirik said. Leif breathed out. "He was stronger last winter. He walked better. His voice held force. And this morning he chose to vanish into snow like a dying bird." Eirik held his tone steady. "He was old." Leif's eyes snapped to him. "Old does not mean gone." "No, but winter takes what age weakens." Leif turned away. "I should have followed him." "You would have died with him," Eirik answered. "Is that what he wanted?" Leif did not respond. He left the tool wall and stepped outside. Snow hit him at once. The storm thickened again. The wind swept over his face. He closed his eyes and tried to breathe through the heat building in his chest. Behind him, Runa stepped out of the longhouse. Her small boots sank into fresh snow. She walked to Leif's side. He did not look at her. She looked up at him. "You miss him," she said. Leif's throat tightened. "He taught me to fight, to hunt, to speak with strength, to stand against fear." He paused. "I was not ready to lose him." Runa's voice softened. "No one was." He looked at her now. Snowflakes clung to her hair. Her cheeks were red from cold, and her eyes carried the same grief he felt, though she was much younger. "Come inside," Leif said. "Your feet will freeze." Runa shook her head. "Not yet." They stood together in the storm. Snow drifted across the prints that still lingered near the hall. Soon they would fade. Soon the path would vanish. Runa watched the tracks. "Where do you think he is now?" Leif sighed. "Far," she frowned. "I want to know why he left without words." Leif lowered his head. "I think he spoke his reasons long before he walked away." Inside the hall, the chieftain gathered the tribe around the fire. His voice needed no force. Everyone listened. "We honor Torvald today," he said. "He guided many of us through harsh seasons. He taught us skills that keep us alive. He gave strength without taking any." Nods circled the room. Runa stood near Eirik. Leif returned and stood at the back of the group, arms crossed, jaw set. The chieftain continued. "He lived as a warrior. He lived as a father. He lived as a keeper of stories. When his body could no longer hold the weight of his years, he walked into the snow. His steps were not from fear. They were from choice." A woman raised her voice. "Why must elders leave us this way? Why does no ritual guide them?" The chieftain took a slow breath. "Because they choose peace. Their last walk frees the tribe from feeding a body that cannot work. It frees them from slow pain. It frees us from watching them fade. It gives them control over their own end." Another man spoke. "He deserved more." "He deserved truth," the chieftain said, "and he gave it to himself." Runa listened with wide eyes. She understood the words. They did not ease her heart. The chieftain stepped back. "We speak his stories now, one by one." An older hunter went first. He told how Torvald saved him from a falling pine in early autumn. A young mother shared how Torvald fed her child during a harsh winter. A man told how Torvald settled a feud between brothers that once threatened the tribe. Voices rose with memory. Each story warmed the hall. When it came time for Runa to speak, she stepped forward. She held her hands tight, so they would not shake. "He saved me last spring," she said. "I fell in the river when ice broke. My brother ran for help. Torvald reached me. He pulled me out. He wrapped me in his cloak. He told me to breathe slow. I asked him why he risked his life for me. He said I was worth the risk." Her voice cracked. She wiped her face fast. "He told me stories when I could not sleep. He gave me a carved horse last summer. He helped me learn knots so I could help my mother. I thought he would stay forever." Her breath hitched. Eric stepped beside her. He rested his hand on her shoulder. "He stays in what he taught." The tribe nodded. Some whispered her name. The chieftain lifted his hand. "We will keep Torvald's memory alive. His staff stands in our hall from this night on." Leif stepped forward. "Let me retrieve it." "No," the chieftain said. "His staff stays where he set it. Nature will take it as it takes him." Leif's jaw twitched. He stepped back. The chieftain ended the gathering with a simple line. "We live by the lessons he left." Runa looked up at the ceiling beams. She felt the weight of the moment settle into her chest like new snow. She wanted to hold on to his voice. She wanted to walk after him. She wanted to find him, but she knew she never would. Days passed. Snow thickened. Winds grew harsh. The tribe settled into hard winter routines. Men hunted when the storm broke. Women dried meat and mended clothing. Children learned tasks inside the hall. Runa helped her mother tend animals in the lean-to. She learned how to hold warmth in thick layers. She learned how to calm scared goats during storms. Leif pushed himself harder each day. He trained outside in the snow until his hands went numb. He hunted alone. He chopped wood until sweat froze on his brow. The loss of Torvald drove him to prove strength. Eric watched him with concern. "You work against your own body," he warned. Leif ignored him. Runa watched Leif from across the yard. She saw the pain behind his anger. She understood it. Torvald mattered to both of them. One evening, as the sun sank early behind the valley, Leif stood outside, staring at the ridge where Torvald vanished. Snow swept across it like waves. Runa approached him. "You think about him every day," she said. Leif kept his eyes forward. "So do you." "Yes," he crossed his arms. "I want to follow his path. Not now, but when the storm stops." Runa frowned. "The chieftain said not to." Leif nodded. "I know what he said." She stepped closer. "What do you think you'll find?" He lowered his tone. "Truth." Torvald left so he would not burden the tribe. Leif shook his head. "He left without peace. I saw it in him." Runa stared at him. He looked calm. "You are young. You saw calm because you wanted to." Her face tightened. She stepped back. Leif rubbed his temples. "I did not mean harm." "You think you know everything," she said. "No, but I know him." "So did I," he sighed. "Listen, I do not want to lose you too. Do not follow me if I walk that ridge." Runa lifted her chin. "I will if I need to." They looked at each other through the cold air. Then Leif turned away. That night, snow pressed heavier. The wind carried sharp howls across the valley. The hall shook in long groans. Sparks rose from the fire and drifted up through the smoke hole. Runa lay near the hearth. She listened to the storm. She thought of Torvald walking through snow like this. She pictured him sinking into drifts. She pictured him leaning on his staff. She pictured him trying to breathe in freezing wind. Her eyes burned. She curled closer to the fire. Across the hall, Leif paced. He kept his arms folded. His boots struck the floor with soft thuds. The chieftain watched him. "You look ready to break," the chieftain said. Leif stopped pacing. I want to know why he left without a word. Some answers stay quiet, the chieftain said. Leif exhaled through his nose. He meant something to me. He meant something to all of us. Not like this, the chieftain stood, his voice softened. Grief pushes men in strange directions. Do not walk into storms chasing ghosts. Leif said nothing. The chieftain walked away. Leif returned to pacing. Runa watched him, her mind tangled between fear and need. She did not want him to follow Torvald's path, but she knew he would. Before dawn, the storm broke. Snow settled soft and low. The sky opened pale. Leif rose with the first light. He strapped a knife to his belt. He grabbed his cloak. He pulled on thick boots. He headed toward the door. Runa woke at once. She saw his shadow moving. She pushed herself up. "Where are you going?" she asked. Leif paused. "I need to clear my head." "You're lying." He clenched his jaw. Runa stood. "You're going to the ridge." The snow stopped. "You'll die." He looked at her with steady eyes. "Not today." She stepped in front of the door. "You will not follow him." Leif breathed slow. "Move." "No." He looked past her. "Runa, please." She stayed still. He closed his eyes for a moment. "You think I want to vanish like him?" "I think grief makes you foolish." He opened his eyes. "I need answers." "You won't find him." "I know." Runa stepped closer. "Then why go?" "Because someone should walk the path he took." Leif's voice dropped. "Someone should honor him with action." She held his gaze. His voice carried weight she had not heard before. Pain, duty, love. Slowly, she stepped aside. He opened the door. Cold swept in. He looked back at her. "Stay here. Stay safe." Then he walked out into the snow. Leif walked through fresh snow with steady steps. The storm had eased, but winter still held the valley tight. Air pressed cold against his cheeks. The sun hid behind thin clouds, letting in pale light that washed the land in gray. His breath streamed in slow bursts as he moved toward the ridge where Torvald vanished. Each print he left felt heavy. He knew this walk tested his strength, but he did not turn back. His boots sank deep. His cloak snapped in the light wind. His knife tapped against his belt. He looked ahead without pause. Behind him, the longhouse grew smaller. He did not see Runa push her face to the doorframe. She watched until he faded into white distance. Her chest tightened as fear crawled through her ribs, but she did not follow. Not yet. Leif reached the first rise of the slope. He stopped only to study the snow. No print showed. The storm erased what Torvald left. The ridge stood blank, as if no one ever walked it. He looked over his shoulder. The hall sat far behind. Smoke drifted from the roof hole. Figures moved near the door. He turned back to the ridge. He placed his hand on his chest. "Torvald," he whispered, "guide my steps." Then he kept walking. Inside the longhouse, Runa returned to the hearth. Eric knelt beside her again. He watched her with sharp eyes. "Where is Leif?" he asked. Runa swallowed. "He left." Eric stiffened. "He went after Torvald?" She nodded. Eric stood at once. He grabbed his cloak and boots. His jaw tightened. "I will bring him back before he freezes." Runa stepped in front of him. "Wait." Eric stared down at her. "He is not thinking with sense." "I know, but the ridge is steep. You slip on snow and morning cold. You fall. Then we lose too." Eric frowned. "So we do nothing?" "We watch the ridge," Runa said. Her voice steadied. "If he does not return when the sun reaches the pines, we send help." Eric hesitated. Then he nodded. "You speak like someone twice your age." "Torvald taught me that," she said. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Then I trust you. Leif reached higher ground. Wind pulled at his cloak. Snow stung his face. He stepped around bent pines. Drifted snow rose to his knees again. He moved slower now. He studied shapes on the ground. He searched for torn bark, pushed branches, anything Torvald touched. Nothing. The ridge stretched above him. He forced breath through tight lungs. His legs burned with each step. He stopped at a cluster of boulders. He pressed his hand to the stone. It felt cold and rough. Torvald once told him stories here. Stories of raids, hunts, and losses. Leif remembered sitting at the old man's feet, listening with wide eyes. Torvald's voice shaped whole seasons for him. Leif closed his eyes. I will not leave you without truth, he said. Then he pushed forward. The path narrowed. Rocks jutted out from under snow. The wind sharpened as the ridge rose. Halfway up, he paused. He saw a shadow in the snow ahead. Not movement, not a creature, a shape. He walked toward it. His breath caught. It was a staff, Torvald's staff, half buried, leaning at an angle. Snow crusted along the wood. The carvings ran down its length. Leif knelt beside it with slow movements. He brushed snow away from the top. His fingers traced the lines Torvald carved last autumn. He swallowed hard. He looked around. Snow swept across the ridge. No shape marked the land. No sign of the old man's body. Only wind and white and silence. Leif pulled the staff free from the snow. He held it with both hands. The wood felt heavy. Too heavy. He lowered his head. I found this, but not you. He closed his eyes. Pain burned behind them. You trained me for years, he said, but you died alone. His voice broke. He pushed the sound down. You should not have died alone. He stood with slow steps. He held the staff tight. He looked at the ridge crest. Snow swept across the edge. He took one step forward, then one more. He reached the top. The valley spread wide below. Pines bent in the wind, frost-covered rock faces. The fjord glimmered in distant pale light. He saw the world Torvald saw on his last breath. Leif's heart throbbed. He spoke into the wind. I honor your walk. I honor your choice. I honor your life. But the wind did not answer. He sank to his knees with the staff across his lap. His breath hit the air in slow clouds. His shoulders dropped. Tears fell and froze on his face. For the first time since Torvald left, Leif allowed grief to break through. As the sun reached the tops of the pines below, Runa stepped outside again. She stared up the ridge. Snow glowed in thin light. Wind rushed over the land. She saw no movement. Time passed. Her heart beat fast. Eric stepped beside her. We go now, he said. But before they prepared to leave, a lone figure appeared on the ridge path, small at first, then larger as he came down. Leif. Runa's breath shook with relief. Eric exhaled. Leif walked slow. The staff lay across his shoulders. His steps held no anger now, only weight. When he reached the bottom of the ridge, Runa rushed forward. She stopped 2 steps from him. Her eyes moved to the staff. You found it, she whispered. Leif nodded. He left it near the crest. Runa touched the staff with trembling fingers. He carved this with steady hands. Leif looked at her. He died with strength. Her eyes lifted. Did you find him? Leif shook his head. The snow took him. His last steps disappeared. Runa lowered her gaze. Then he rests. Leif looked toward the ridge once more. His voice softened. He chose peace. Eric placed a hand on Leif's back. You did what you needed. Now come inside. Warm yourself. Leif nodded. The 3 walked toward the hall. Inside, the tribe gathered when they saw the staff. faces filled with emotion. The chieftain approached Leif. "You found a part of his last day," the chieftain said. Leif held the staff forward. "This belongs here." The chieftain accepted it. His hand steadied as he lifted the carved wood. He placed it near the longhouse entrance, a symbol of the man who once kept watch over them. Runa stepped closer to Leif. "You do not look lost anymore." Leif looked down at her. His staff spoke truth. What truth? "That a life ends," Leif said, "but its weight stays." Runa nodded. The chieftain turned to the tribe. "Tonight we honor him one last time. We burn a torch for him. We speak his name. Then we let his spirit rest." The tribe agreed. That evening the hall filled with warm light. Fire rose strong. Voices grew louder. People shared torches. The chieftain lit the first. He stepped outside and placed the flame on a stone. Others followed. Runa held a small torch. Eric guided her hand. The fire warmed her face. She lifted it high. Leif stood behind her. His expression now held calm strength. The tribe gathered around the torches. Snow drifted in slow lines. The valley lay quiet. The chieftain raised his voice. "Torvald taught us more than skills. He taught us how to face cold seasons, how to stand with purpose, how to live in peace." He lifted his torch higher. The tribe followed. Runa whispered Torvald's name. Leif did the same. Eirik followed. Each voice carried memory into the winter air. When the torches burned low, the tribe returned inside. Runa stayed behind for one last moment. She watched the final ember fade into snow. She whispered, "Thank you." Then she went inside. Later, as the fire cracked and voices softened into night murmurs, Runa approached Leif where he sat against the wall. "You walked his path," she said. Leif nodded. "And I returned." "Did you find your answers?" "Yes." She studied his face. "What were they?" "That he left because he loved us," Leif said. "He did not want us to watch him fade." Runa lowered her eyes. "I wish he stayed." "So do I," Leif said, "but his walk was his last gift." Runa sat beside him. She leaned her head against his arm. He rested his hand gently on her shoulder. They stayed like that as the fire dimmed, as the tribe settled, as snow pressed around the hall. The ridge stood silent outside. Torvald's path lay hidden beneath new snow, but his lessons lived in the hearts of those he left. Winter held tight to the valley for many days after the torch ceremony. The tribe fell into heavy rhythm. Snow piled high along the longhouse walls. The animals stayed close in their pens. Smoke rose from the roof hole each morning. Work continued because work kept the tribe alive. Runa spent most days near the fire. She helped mend clothes. She fed goats with dried moss and scraps. She scraped frost from buckets. Her hands stiffened from cold water. Her fingers cracked from dry air. She worked without complaint, though her thoughts drifted often to Torvald. She felt the hall shift without him. Each morning felt less steady. The tribe kept moving, yet something inside the longhouse felt hollow, like a chest missing a heartbeat. Leif worked harder than before. He chopped wood from dawn to dusk. Each strike of the axe echoed through the valley. He hunted when weather allowed. He carried water across the yard. He helped repair the roof during storms. He did all of it with a steady face, but Runa saw the truth behind his eyes. Grief stayed with him, though he hid it well. Eric watched over both of them. Runa felt comfort when her brother stood near, though even he carried weight. Torvald trained him too. Torvald shaped many in the tribe. One evening, when the wind howled against the walls, Runa sat near the fire, with her hands wrapped around a warm bowl. Leif sat across from her. His face glowed in orange light. Runa felt something heavy settle in her stomach. "Leif," she said. His eyes lifted. "Yes." "You said his last walk was his gift," she said. He nodded. "Then why do we feel worse each day?" she asked. Leif let out a slow breath. He set his bowl aside. "Grief does not end because we understand it." Runa lowered her eyes. "I want him to speak again." "I want that too." She looked at him. "Do you dream of him?" Leif paused. "Yes, I see him climbing the ridge. I see him standing strong at the top. Then I see him fade." "Fade?" He nodded. "Not fall, not collapse. Fade, like old fire turning to ash." Runa shivered. Leif looked at her with concern. "Do you dream too?" She nodded. "I hear him say my name. When I wake, it feels like he sits beside me." Leif rested his elbows on his knees. "He touched our lives. Dreams hold pieces of him." Runa stared at the fire. "Pieces are not enough." Leif said nothing. He understood. The next morning brought new trouble. Eric burst into the hall before dawn. Snow covered his cloak. Frost lay thick on his beard. His breath came fast. The tribe stirred at once. The chieftain rose. "What is it?" he asked. Eric pointed toward the forest edge. "Tracks." Leif stood. "Animal?" "No," Eric said. "Men." Voices murmured across the hall. People stepped closer. Faces tightened with worry. The chieftain frowned. "How many?" "At least 5, Eric said. "Possibly 7. Leif reached for his spear. "Raiders?" "Not yet," Erica said. "But they move close." Runa's heart pounded. "Do they come toward us?" Eric shook his head. "They walk along the valley, close enough to watch us, not close enough to approach." Leif tightened his grip on the spear. "They test us," Runa swallowed. "Do we stay inside?" "Yes," Eric said, "until we know more." The chieftain stepped forward. "No one leaves the hall alone. No one hunts today. We watch the valley from the door." People nodded. Fear settled across the room like low smoke. Runa clung to Eric's arm. "Will they attack?" Eric brushed her hair back. "Not if we stay ready." Leif moved toward the door at once. The chieftain stopped him. "Wait," Leif paused. "We guard as a group," the chieftain said. A few men joined him. Leif stood with them. They stepped outside. Snow greeted them with a quiet hush. Runa ran to the doorway. She watched from behind the wooden frame. Eric stood with her. The men scanned the valley. Snow drifted in slow spirals. Far off near the tree line, dark shapes moved. Eric leaned forward. "There, near the pines." Runa followed his gaze. She saw them now. 5 dark figures walked through deep snow. Slow, careful, too far to see faces, too far to know weapons, but close enough to see purpose. Leif whispered. "They watch us." The chieftain's voice tightened. "They search for weakness." Runa felt a sharp twist in her stomach. She remembered Torvald's staff leaning near the entrance. She remembered his strong voice. She wished he stood here today. The men stayed outside for many minutes. The dark figures walked along the tree line, then slipped between pines and vanished. When they were gone, the chieftain spoke. "We prepare for attack." The tribe sprang into action. Men reinforced the door with heavy beams. Women gathered supplies into central piles. Children carried small bundles of wood to the hearth. Runa and Eirik helped move extra hides to cover the walls. Leif sharpened weapons by the fire. The chieftain paced through the hall, guiding each task. Runa worked fast. Her hands shook. Her breaths came thin. Eric noticed. "You fear them," he said. "Yes," she whispered. "That is natural." "Will they return?" He paused. "Most men who watch from the trees return." Runa swallowed. I miss Torvald. So do I, Eric said. He would know what to say. Runa nodded. He always did. She thought of the old man's calm voice, his steady presence, his stories, his peace. She wished he had not walked into the snow. His strength felt missing at the worst time. Leif approached them with a spear in hand. His face stayed sharp and alert. Tracks lead south, he said. They move toward the river. They follow the valley path. Eric crossed his arms. Scouting group, Leif nodded. They look for weak halls. The chieftain joined them. We stand strong. We guard the animals. We keep fire burning. We let them think twice. Leif stared through the door at the woods. If they come, we fight. The chieftain nodded. Only if needed. Leif gripped the spear harder. The day passed slow and heavy. Snow fell steady, muffling sound. Runa watched the woods again and again, expecting dark shapes to appear. But none came. Leif kept walking around the hall. He checked the door. He inspected the fences. He watched the tree line. He did not rest. Runa approached him once. You think they strike tonight? She asked. Leif kept his eyes on the trees. They strike when fear grows. Do we look afraid? Runa asked. Leif glanced at her. You do not. She looked down. I am. He rested his hand on her shoulder. Fear is not shame, but stand steady anyway. Torvald taught you that. She nodded. He did. Leif turned back to the valley. Then stand steady now. Night fell fast. The tribe gathered inside. The fire burned bright. Extra torches lit the walls. Children huddled near mothers. Men sat with weapons ready. Women watched the door with sharp eyes. The wind pressed against the hall. Snow brushed across the roof. The world outside felt tense and waiting. Runa lay near the hearth with Eirik. She stared at the flickering flames. Each crack in the wood made her jump. Leif stood near the door. His spear rested against his leg. His hand stayed on the shaft. The chieftain stepped beside him. You hold guard at night. I hold guard at dawn. Leif nodded. Runa watched them. She wanted to speak. She wanted to ask questions, but her throat stayed tight. Hours passed. The fire dimmed. Breaths slowed. Tension thickened. Then, faintly, a sound reached the hall. Crunch. Snow moved outside. Leif stiffened. Runa froze. Eric sat up fast. The chieftain held a finger to his lips. Silence followed. Then another crunch. Closer. Leif stepped to the door. Runa's heart pounded so hard, she felt it in her ears. Leif lifted the beam but did not open the door. He listened through the wood. The sound came again. Soft. Slow. Dragging. Runa clutched Eric's sleeve. Is it them? Eric whispered. Stay calm. Leif pressed his ear to the door. His face shifted. He whispered back. Something small. The chieftain frowned. Animal? Leif nodded. Maybe. Runa stepped closer. What kind? Leif exhaled. Only one way to know. He lifted the beam. He opened the door, slow. Cold air hit the hall. The tribe leaned forward. A small shape sat in the snow. A goat. The tribe let out breaths. Runa pressed her hand against her chest. Relief shook through her. Leif crouched. It broke the fence, he said. It wandered. The chieftain nodded. Bring it inside. Leif pulled the goat in and closed the door fast. The hall relaxed. Light laughter rose. The fear eased. Runa sat again, her body shaking with leftover tension. Eric smiled at her. See, not every sound is a threat. Runa nodded, though her breath still struggled. Leif set the goat near the wall and returned to the door. Stay alert, he said. Fear distracts. The chieftain nodded, but for a moment the tribe breathed easier. Later, when the hall settled again, Runa approached the door where Leif stood. You did not flinch, she said. Leif glanced at her. I did. No, she insisted. You stayed strong. Leif sighed. Strength is easier when someone else needs it. She tilted her head. You think we need you strong? He looked away. I think Torvald would want me strong. Runa nodded slowly. Then stay strong. For him. For us. Leif's eyes flicked toward her. Something softened in them. You speak like him sometimes, Leif said. Runa smiled faintly. Then he still lives. Leif turned back to the door, but his shoulders lowered, and his breath eased. As night deepened, the tribe drifted into uneasy rest. Leif kept watch. Runa rested near the fire with Eirik. The hall glowed with dim warmth. Snow drifted outside. Wind pushed at the walls. Hours passed. Leif stayed still. Runa slept for a moment, then woke. She watched the shadows move on the walls. She listened to the soft breaths of the tribe. She felt the quiet weight of fear and memory. She whispered into the dark, Torvald, stay with us. She closed her eyes again. Outside, the valley waited. Inside, the hall held its breath. Dawn broke in pale blue light. Frost clung to the longhouse walls. The tribe woke slow after a tense night. Runa rubbed her eyes and sat up near the fire. Her body felt heavy. Her thoughts felt scattered. She looked toward the door. Leif still stood guard. He had not slept. His spear rested against his shoulder. His eyes stayed sharp, fixed on the valley outside. Runa walked toward him. You stayed awake all night, she said. Leif nodded. The snow kept falling. The valley stayed too quiet. Runa glanced at the windows. Do you think they still watch us? Leif's jaw tightened. If they left tracks. If they stayed hidden. The chieftain approached with slow steps. Eat, then we go outside together. Leif turned. Outside? Yes, the chieftain said. Fear grows in closed rooms. We look at the valley. We search for tracks. We show the land we do not hide. Leif nodded. I go first. No, the chieftain said. We go as a group. Runa listened in silence. Her stomach twisted again. Eirik joined them. I am coming too, the chieftain nodded. Good. Runa stays inside. Runa stepped forward. Why? You are young, the chieftain said. You stay safe, she frowned. Torvald said strength grows with use. Leif glanced at her. Eirik looked unsure, but the chieftain held firm. You stay. Runa resisted the urge to argue. The tribe prepared to step outside. She stood near the fire, watching them gather weapons, furs, and boots. Leif raised his spear. Eirik tightened his belt. The chieftain lifted his axe. They opened the door and walked out into the cold. Runa moved to the doorway. She leaned against the wooden frame and watched them step through deep snow. The sun peeked over the ridge. Light shone across the valley. Their tracks pressed heavy into the snow. They looked small against the white world. Runa held her breath as they neared the tree line. Eirik pointed left. Leif bent down near the ground. The chieftain walked a few steps ahead. Minutes passed. Eirik turned and waved toward the hall. Runa stepped outside, though she knew she should not. She walked through the snow to reach them, her feet sinking with each step. She stopped beside Eirik. What did you find? She asked. He pointed at the ground. Tracks, but old. Wind-erased edges. They did not return during the night. Runa looked at Leif. Then they left. Leif examined the snow. Maybe. They walked south, toward the valley mouth. The chieftain stood still. We follow for a short distance. Runa stiffened. You follow them? Yes, he said. We learn who entered our valley. Leif straightened. I walk first. Eirik followed him. The chieftain nodded. Do not go far. Runa stood alone as they walked farther. She felt small. She felt exposed. The land around her stretched wide and cold. The trees stood silent. She hugged herself. Eric turned back. Go, inside, Runa. She hesitated. You come back soon? He nodded. Soon. She wanted to stay with them, but she obeyed. She turned and walked back to the hall. Snow crunched under her boots. She stepped inside and closed the door fast. The tribe looked at her. They follow tracks, she said. Faces tightened again. Several women whispered to each other. Children clung to their mothers. Men sat with weapons close, waiting. Runa sat near the fire again. She watched the door. Minutes turned slow. 1 hour passed, then another. Runa's nails dug into her palms. They should be back, the chieftain's wife nodded. The valley is long. Runa stood and paced. Her breath came sharp. Images flashed in her mind. Leaf on the ground. Eric trapped. The chieftain struck down. She clenched her teeth. Then she heard footsteps outside. The door opened. Leaf stepped in first. Eric followed. The chieftain walked behind them. Snow covered their cloaks. Their faces looked troubled. The tribe gathered around them at once. Did you find them? Someone asked. No, the chieftain said. Their tracks crossed the river. They headed south toward open land. Leif lowered his spear. They left the valley, Eric frowned. But they moved slow. They watched us. They stayed near. Runa walked to Eric. Is danger gone? Eric shook his head. Danger does not leave. It waits. The chieftain raised his hand. Listen. Everyone grew quiet. They were not a large group, he said. 5 or 6, no signs of more. But they looked at our land. We must stay alert for days. Men nodded. Women exchanged tense glances. Runa caught Eric staring at the ground. Something troubles you, she whispered. Eric looked up. The tracks. They were too light for men who carry heavy gear. What does that mean? They did not bring supplies, Eric said. They did not move like raiders. They moved like watchers. Runa frowned. Why watch us? Eric lowered his voice. To judge if we weaken. She shivered. Leif set his spear down against the wall. His face stayed unreadable. They did not enter the hall, he said. They did not attack. That means they feared us too. Runa blinked. You think they feared us? Leif nodded. Strong halls frighten wandering groups. We looked ready. Runa's breath eased a little. Then Torvald's training helped. Leif paused. Yes. He looked at her with quiet thought. The tension in the hall lingered through the day. Work continued in small bursts. Everyone moved with caution. The chieftain ordered groups to guard the river path. Leif joined one group. Eric joined another. Runa stayed inside, though she wished to join them. Hours passed. The sun reached the ridge, then dipped behind it. Runa waited at the door for Eric and Leif to return. When she finally saw them walking toward the hall, she felt relief wash through her. You look tired, she told Eric. He nodded. Tracks faded, no sign of them. Leif walked past them and placed his spear on the wall. Runa followed him. You think they return later? Leif sat on a bench. I think they moved far for now. Runa sat beside him. Then the hall breathes again. Leif looked at her. You looked stronger today. She blinked. Stronger? You walked into the snow when told not to. You looked fear in the face. You listened. You asked. You stayed steady. Runa lowered her head. I felt weak. Leif shook his head. Weakness shakes. Strength stands through it. Runa stared into the fire. I wanted Torvald to see it. Leif's voice softened. He sees. She felt warmth spread in her chest. That night, The tribe gathered for a simple meal: dried fish, root mash, warm broth. Smoke curled to the roof. Light danced across faces. Runa sat near Eric. The chieftain sat across the room. Leif sat near the door. People spoke in low tones at first. Then voices grew louder. Relief crept back into the hall. A small girl approached Runa with a question about sewing. Runa helped her. Afterward, the girl smiled and ran back to her mother. Eirik nudged Runa. "You help others," Runa shrugged. "It gives my hands something to do." Eric smiled. Later, Leif walked toward them. His steps looked slow. His face looked thoughtful. He sat on the floor next to Runa. She felt the shift of air as he settled beside her. "Runa," he said. She turned. "Yes?" "I spoke with the chieftain," he said, "about Torvald." Runa's breath hitched. "Why?" Leif looked into the fire. "He asked me why Torvald walked alone. He asked if Torvald left because he felt weak." Runa tensed. Torvald was not weak. Leif nodded. "I said the same." Runa stared at him. "Then why ask?" "The chieftain thinks old men fear slow death," Leif said. "He thinks they walk into snow to choose their own end." Runa's throat tightened. "Torvald did not choose to leave us. He chose to protect us." Leif nodded. "I told him that too." Runa searched his face. "What do you believe?" Leif paused. Then he looked at her with calm eyes. "I believe Torvald walked because he loved you more than he feared the snow." Her breath caught. Eric looked away to give them space. Leif continued. "He saw danger in the valley. He felt weakness in himself. He left to remove burden from our hands." Runa blinked. Tears filled her eyes, but she held them back. "He did not want us to watch him fade." "No," Leif said. "He wanted to walk on his own terms. He wanted peace. He wanted to keep you safe." Runa inhaled slow. "I wish he stayed longer." Leif nodded. "So do I." Silence settled between them. Peaceful, heavy, shared. Later that night, when the hall grew quiet, Runa walked toward the door. She wrapped a fur around her shoulders and stepped outside for air. The night sky shone with pale stars. Snow glittered under moonlight. The valley looked still. Footsteps crunched behind her. Leif joined her. "You should not stand alone," he said. Runa smiled faintly. "I needed breath." Leif stood beside her. Their shoulders nearly touched. "Do you fear snow?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I fear what walks in it." Leif nodded. "Snow hides sound, snow hides danger, but snow also holds truth." Runa looked up at him. "What truth?" Leif pointed to the ground. "Tracks. All things leave tracks." She looked at her footprints next to his. "Even Torvald?" "Yes," Leif said. "Tracks fade, but they leave shape. You carry his shape." Runa felt a warm surge inside her. Wind swept across the valley. Snow drifted in small spirals. Runa pulled her fur closer. "I think he stands somewhere near," she said. Leif's voice dropped low. "So do I." They stood together under the cold sky. For a long moment, silence felt safe. Then Runa spoke. "Leif?" "Yes." "Thank you for guarding us." Leif looked at her. "I guard those I love." Runa's breath caught again. He turned away before she could respond, as though he feared he said too much. "Come inside," he said softly. "Night grows colder." She followed him. Inside, the fire glowed warm. The hall felt lighter. The tribe slept. Peace settled for the first time in days. And Runa felt closer to strength than ever before. The next morning rose slow and gray. Thin ice coated the water barrel. Breath hung in the air in pale clouds. The tribe stirred with soft movement. The fire burned low, sending thin lines of smoke toward the roof. Runa sat up and rubbed her eyes. Sleep helped her mind settle, but something pressed in her chest, a sense of weight, a sense of shift, as if the valley held its breath. She looked toward the door. Leif already stood with his cloak on, spear in hand. He watched the snow outside with steady focus. His shoulders rose and fell slowly. His posture held calm strength. Runa walked to him. "You woke early," Leif nodded. "The valley spoke in the night," she frowned. "What did it say?" He did not turn. Snow moved in patterns that pointed toward the river. Runa stepped beside him. "Tracks?" "No tracks," he said. "But wind does not swirl without reason. Something passed through while we slept, far from the hall, but near enough to stir the land." Runa felt a slow chill spread across her back. "You think they returned?" "I think someone walks near," Leif said. "Not close, but not gone." The chieftain approached them with slow steps. His voice carried low. "I felt the same." The air shifted. Eric joined them. "I say we scout before the sun rises higher." The chieftain nodded. "I agree." Runa crossed her arms. "I come too." Eric raised a brow. "You insisted on staying inside before." "I insist on walking today," Runa said. "Torvald taught me to step forward when the land feels strange." Leif watched her without expression. Then he spoke. "She comes." The chieftain hesitated. Then he nodded. "Stay close to us." Runa breathed out slowly. "I stay close." They prepared in silence. They wrapped cloaks tight. They lifted weapons. They stepped outside into the cold morning air. Snow stretched across the valley in soft layers. The sky held a dull brightness. The group walked past the pines, leaving deep tracks behind. Runa stayed between Leif and Eric. The chieftain walked ahead, scanning the land. Silence settled heavy. No birds called, no branches cracked. Only wind moved. They reached the riverbank. Frozen water glimmered under thin snow. The trees leaned inward, as if holding secret voices. Leif paused and knelt. Eirik lowered beside him. Runa stepped closer. "What do you see?" Leif brushed snow aside. "Marks, not full tracks, but weight pressed the ground. Footsteps brushed by wind." Eric pointed. "Here and here, someone crossed." The chieftain looked toward the trees. "More than one?" "Two," Leif said. "Walking slow, watching the ridge." Runa looked toward the ridge. "Why return?" Eric's eyes narrowed. "To search for weakness." Leif rose to his feet. His voice stayed steady. "Then we show strength instead." Runa studied his face. "How?" "By walking farther," he said. "By refusing fear." The chieftain lifted his axe. "We follow the marks." They continued down the river path. Snow thickened near the trees. Frost clung to every branch. Runa stepped careful, touching trunks for balance. Leif slowed his pace to match hers. They moved deeper into the woods. The marks grew faint. Then they stopped altogether. Eric exhaled. "They vanished." Leif studied the trees. "Look higher." Runa looked up. Branches bent. Frost broke off where hands brushed. "They climbed," she said. Leif nodded. They watched from above. The chieftain turned toward the forest edge. "I know who uses trees like this." Runa stepped closer. "Who?" "Wanderers from the lowlands," he said. "Survivors of broken tribes. They steal food. They hide in trees. They search for new land." Eric sighed. "They search for weak halls." Leif looked at the chieftain. "We send them a message." Runa tilted her head. "What message?" Leif read the forest for a moment. Then he took his spear and stabbed it into the snow. "We leave our mark. We show we saw them. We show we do not hide." The chieftain nodded. "We mark the ground here. Make it clear." They used branches to carve lines in the snow. They pressed symbols of their tribe onto open patches of ground. These marks told all wanderers the same truth. We watch. We stay strong. We protect our land. When they finished, the chieftain touched Runa's shoulder. You walked well, she nodded. I learned from Torvald. The chieftain smiled. Eric chuckled. You grew stronger than me. Runa grinned, though her breath still shook with cold. Leif stepped beside her. You kept pace. So did you, she said. A small smile touched his lips. They turned back toward the hall. Snow began to fall as they returned. Light flakes drifted down with slow grace. The longhouse waited across the valley, warm smoke rising from the roof hole. Inside, the tribe gathered again when they entered. The chieftain explained what they found. People listened without panic. The marks reassured them. Runa stepped near the fire. Warmth spread through her hands. Eric stood beside her. You walked with purpose, he said. I walked with fear too. Eric nodded. Fear walks with all hunters, but you did not stop. Runa looked toward Leif. He stood with the chieftain, speaking in low tones. His movements looked controlled. His posture looked calm. She felt something shift in her chest again. Hours passed. Snow thickened. The valley turned quiet. By afternoon, the tribe settled into slow tasks. Women prepared dried meat. Men checked blades. Children gathered near the fire. Runa sat on a bench sewing a tear in her cloak. Eirik carved a new handle for a knife. Leif repaired spear bindings. The chieftain walked near the front door, talking with older warriors. The hall felt safe. Runa finished the stitch and looked up. The door opened. Cold wind swept inside. Everyone turned. The figure who entered wore thick furs. Snow covered his boots. His beard looked tangled. His eyes watched the hall with hesitation. Runa's breath hitched. A stranger. The hall fell silent. The chieftain stepped forward. State your purpose. The stranger lifted his hands. I walk with no weapon, he said. He turned slowly to show empty hands, empty belt, empty back. I come alone. Leif rose with slow caution. His hand hovered near his spear. Eric moved closer to the chieftain. Runa stood up. The stranger breathed out fog. I came from the lowlands. My tribe ended. I walk without shelter. I saw your marks near the river. The chieftain narrowed his eyes. You watched our hall? Yes, the stranger said, but I did not strike. I searched for people with honor. I searched for a hall that still stands. Leif stepped forward. You walked near us. You hid in trees. The stranger nodded. I feared approach. I feared your strength. Runa looked at the man's face. Exhaustion lined his eyes. Cold clung to his skin. The chieftain crossed his arms. Why come now? The stranger swallowed. I saw the girl with you. I saw her walk without fear. I saw her carry strength. I thought your tribe holds peace. Runa froze. Leif looked at her. The chieftain raised a brow. You speak of Runa? Yes, the stranger said. She walked with purpose. She did not bend. I thought your tribe would not strike a lone walker. Runa felt heat rise to her face. She did not expect her steps to guide strangers. The chieftain looked at Leif, then at Eirik, then at Runa. Finally, he spoke. What do you seek? The stranger lowered his head. A place to rest, a place to work, a place to serve. Leif stepped closer. You offer service? Yes, Eric frowned. We know nothing of you. The stranger nodded. Ask what you wish. Runa watched him. Something honest showed in his posture. Not confidence, not trickery, only desperation mixed with respect. She stepped forward. Did you walk near Torvald's ridge? The stranger hesitated. I saw the old man, days ago, before the storm. Runa's heart jumped. You saw him? Yes, the stranger said. He walked alone, slow, with peace in his steps. Leif stepped closer. Did he speak? No, the stranger said. He nodded at me. I nodded at him. He did not fear. He walked with purpose. Runa closed her eyes. Relief washed through her. Torvald saw another traveler. He left with honor. He died with dignity. She opened her eyes. Thank you. The chieftain studied the stranger. You spoke truth about Torvald. That earns trust. But you must work for safety here. The stranger nodded at once. I give all I have. Leif crossed his arms. Then you stay for 3 days. We judge your actions. After 3 days, we decide. The stranger bowed his head. Thank you. The chieftain waved him inside. Sit by the fire. Warm your hands. The stranger walked forward slowly. He sat near the flames with shivering fingers. Runa watched him. She felt Torvald's teachings echo inside her chest. Leif approached her. You drew him here. She blinked. I drew him? How? Your steps showed strength, Leif said. Strength guides the lost. Runa felt something warm settle deep inside. Eric chuckled. You scare raiders and inspire wanderers. Runa smiled at him. Torvald trained me well. Leif's eyes softened. He would be proud. Runa looked toward the fire. I hope so. Leif stepped beside her. He is. They stood together as snow drifted outside. Peace settled slowly across the hall again. The tribe watched the stranger with guarded eyes. But the air no longer felt sharp with fear. The valley remained cold. The ridge held stories. The forest held traces of past danger. But inside the hall, warmth grew. Trust formed. Strength deepened. Runa felt taller than she ever felt. She felt Torvald's steps in her own feet. She knew the tribe survived the storm not through weapons alone, but through the quiet strength they carried together. Leif leaned closer. The valley changes, but we stand. Runa nodded. We stand. They looked toward the door as snow fell outside in soft silence. And deep within the cold world, the memory of Torvald walked with them still. Thank you for staying with me through this long story. You followed Runa through fear, cold, loss, and growth. You walked beside Leif as he carried Torvald's memory. You watched a tribe stand strong through silent danger. You stayed for every step, and I hope the quiet moments warmed your mind. Before you leave, take one slow breath. Let your shoulders fall. Let your hands rest. Let the fire from the longhouse glow in your thoughts for a moment more. Tell me where you watched from. I enjoy hearing where these stories reach. If you want more Viking stories like this, feel welcome to subscribe and leave a soft comment. It helps me shape the next tale for you. In the next video, I will tell you about a young shield maker whose work changed the strength of her entire village. I left a small freebie for you in the description.